This video is kind of a sequel to my Was Julius Right Saints Row 2 discussion I made a little while ago. That video did really well, and if you want to check it out, I'll put it in the description because I think it's worth a watch. It's kind of like this one. But today we're going to be doing a Saints Row 3 discussion. Yes, my favourite game. Was STAG right? That is the question we have to ask ourselves. I'm going to just catch you up on STAG, basically. STAG is essentially an anti-gang private military. They came in to clean up Steelport of all the gangs after the bridge was destroyed. It was a big point in the game, and it was the mission was called Gangbang. Haha, see what you did there, Saints Row. But basically what happened is this STAG came in with its huge military force, and they did not back down against the Saints, as well as all gangs in Steelport. So that got me thinking, if STAG was purely just anti-gang violence, does that make them the bad guys in the Saints Row story? Or does it make us the bad guys? Let's find out. I think there's two things here we really have to look at. Ideology and methodology. If you don't know what that means, it means were their motives in the right place, were their heart in the right place, essentially, and was the execution correct? These are two very different things, and we're going to tackle them individually. Let's start off with their methodology. Their plan was to essentially clean up Steelport from crime because of gang violence going crazy, and essentially the mini terrorist attack that happened on the bridge, if you remember, when Kilbane and his luchadors were shooting RPGs at the Saints. So, realistically, is there much to hate there? Yes and no. I mean, we have a bit of a bias as the player, as we're obviously Team Saints. We want the Saints to be right, we want the Saints to win. And STAG technically came in to wipe us out. So while this is bad for us as the boss, you know, were they really wrong for wanting to do that? I mean, look at what the Saints realistically did. We crashed a plane. You know, that's quite big. We made, like, debris rain from the sky on citizens. We blew up Loren's tower, depending on if you saved it or not. We unleashed a huge wrecking ball that came and destroyed the city, unbelievably. We shot up a big factory warehouse for guns. As you can see, the Saints do leave quite a lot of devastation in their wake. And then, obviously, that's without looking at the other gangs, the Morning Stars, Deckers, and the Luchadors. Those, individually, are causing mayhem in their own areas. You got, Lorenz goons, who are all about business and expanding into new areas like Stillwater, sorry. And then you've got the Deckers that are causing all sorts of problems online with their cyber punk energy, if you want to call it that. And then you've got the Luchadors. They wrestle, I guess. But the point I'm making is these gangs are all individually not helping Steelport as a whole, are they? They are overall hurting it. So, are STAG really in the wrong for wanting to take out the enemy gangs of Steelport? I'm going to have to go with no. Although we didn't want him to be there because technically he opposed the Saints. And obviously, as Team Saints, the last thing we need is another party coming in to fight us. In a way, he was correct. Let's be honest. We had caused nothing but devastation, and people were getting hurt along the way, and in STAG's eyes, we were the villains. And I think that in a way, that's what the Saints have always been. The Saints have always been ruthless motherfuckers. Since the first game, although it was toned down in 3, it was kind of brought back towards the end of 3 of how ruthless the Saints actually are. Especially if you choose the ending where you kill Kilbane and STAG. So the Saints are a gang at its core, and gangs hurt people. Gangs cause violence, and I think that STAG, in a way, was justified for wanting to take us out and clean up Steelport of all gangs. But I think that the more interesting topic is methodology, which is the execution. I think that this is where it becomes very obvious to me that we have a problem with STAG. STAG are just as bad as us. I mean, if you watch any of the stuff that's not public for STAG, if you just walk around, you can tell that the citizens are not fond of STAG individually. They all went up to Cyrus at the beginning of the game, asking how long they're going to occupy Steelport, because, quite honestly, they didn't want them there. And then not only that, as the Saints began to push back against STAG, it only got worse from there. I mean, the city of Steelport went under martial law, essentially. if you look at the opening scene of Gangbang, you can see all the STAG cars crushing civilian cars. And in my opinion, they ended up just being as destructive as the Saints. Only this time, they had the badge to do it without having to worry about the police. Because essentially, they became the police. They had no quarrels, really, with disrupting civilian life. Or the NPC's life, really. As they were going after the Saints. So, does that make them any better than the Saints? That's the question we're going to ask. We're going to ask us ethically. Are they any better than the Saints? Because, I mean, if you go towards the end of the Saints storyline, they were willing to blow up a monument to frame the Saints. So, does that even make them the good guys? Like, the Saints would never blow up a monument. Like they said themselves, the Saints aren't terrorists, but STAG are. They were willing to blow up a monument to prove a point. And the Saints ended up saving a landmark. So, in a way, if you go with the Shaundy ending, the Saints were the heroes and STAG were the bad guys. And I mean, the fact that STAG was so willing to blow up a monument has to make you question their motives. And I think their motives were, they just wanted the Saints out no matter what. But the question is, well, what's the payoff? Like, with the Saints gone, all they had done is got Steelport under martial law, blew up a monument, and caused more violence than was already there originally. As the Saints pushed back, STAG pushed back harder, and all that happened was the disruption to normal life got more extreme with each one. I mean, if it wasn't for STAG, there wouldn't even be a zombie outbreak. You know what I mean? That was on the STAG plane, so it's an interesting thing to think about, if you ask me, because in my opinion, STAG definitely did a lot more harm than good. And I mean, at what point do you get to where STAG are the biggest terrorists there? You know what I mean? But at what point do we go, okay, the Saints are gangbangers, but STAG are just a gang with an unbelievable budget and military-grade hardware? You know what I mean? It's definitely something to think about, and I do wonder, at what point is STAG essentially just a gang? You know what I mean? What separates them from the Saints in this situation? Because to me, all STAG wanted was power. And that's exactly what every other gang in Steelport wanted. And they used violence to get that power. Which is exactly what every other gang in Steelport did. So, in my opinion, STAG, while their heart may have been in the right place originally, they turned from trying to clean up the city of Steelport to just thugs. They just became another gang. And at that point, it's hard to really go, was STAG in the right? So, to summarise this really, while I think originally their heart may have been in the right place, their lust for power and letting their anger and vengeance get the best of them really drove them to extremes even the gangs of Steelport would never have gone to. And that is why, in my humble opinion, STAG are not in the right. STAG were not right, and STAG were just incorrect, really. They really just became the thing they sought to destroy. You know, it's an interesting thing to think about, and I think that as a Saints Row 3 fan, these little lore things do interest me quite a lot. So yeah, that's my thoughts anyway. Thank you all for watching. I hope you did enjoy this video. Let me know what you think down below. Do you think STAG were in the right, or do you think that the Saints were just the biggest thugs and STAG were just using any means necessary to get rid of them? Let me know, and I'll see you in the next video, guys. Goodbye.